Everybody, my name is Derek Peterson. I'm the president of the Fediway project. Today we're going to talk about the Fediverse, what exactly the Fediverse is. There's a lot of talk about the Fediverse lately. It's something that I've been really interested in for years now. I think it really is the future of social networking. Probably not in its current form, but something with the same concepts in mind, I think is really going to be the future of social networking, wherein people can be responsible for their own data. They can be responsible for their own rules and how they want to live and what kind of relationships and communication they want to have online. So they can really control it all themselves instead of having some big tech company telling us what we can say and can't say, and then spying on us and using our data and trying to manipulate us to do things that they want us to do. Okay, so first, we'll talk about the technologies involved in a federated system in the Fediverse, and then we'll get into the current communities and kind of culture of the Fediverse, which is a pretty interesting thing, to say the least. So first, let me explain just in general. Fediverse, what Fediverse is, it's a conglomeration of two words. I forget what that's called. You have federation and you have universe. So Fediverse, okay? So it's basically a federation of a bunch of different websites that can form one website, one social network, okay? So you could have one single standalone instance where you're connected to the whole Fediverse or parts of the Fediverse, depending on how the technology is set up. Or just one other person if you wanted to, or nobody if you wanted to, or you could have 1 million users on a website, right? On one server, which would be really with the current protocols. We'll get into that in a second. That they have right now, it'd be very hard, I think, to get a site that big with the way things work right now. But and really, the goal of a federated system is not to have big servers. The goal is to have everything distributed, right? And to have much smaller instances. They're called servers, and many more of them, right? So just like in anything, right? The closer you get to local, the more control over you have of it, the more you can trust the people that are running it, or yourself is running it, and the more control you have, and over the terms and things like that, and things being enforced properly. So local government is always easier to control than a giant federal government over the top of you, right? Same thing with social networking. Adjust this a little bit. So basically, again, what it is so you have a website here, you have a website here, you have a website here, right? They're all separate standalone websites on individual servers, but they can they can connect with each other and then communicate with each other and kind of form one social network, so to speak. So they're communicating with each other, okay? We at Fediwave came up with our own protocol, right? Right now, that communicates a lot better between servers. This isn't really perfectly sharing data between servers. It's a little complicated to explain, but let's look at the list of protocols, just so you get a feel for this. So currently, right now, the most popular, the most advanced protocol, it's just a communication system used, right, to communicate between the servers, okay? So ActivityPub is the most advanced, most popular one right now. It's what Mastodon, I think Mastodon uses whostatus and ActivityPub, but anyway, ActivityPub is the most popular one right now. These are the ones that have kind of evolved over time. Diaspora at one time was kind of, one of the first ones. O-Status was a popular one for quite a while, and now it's ActivityPub, okay? Eventually, it's going to be something different. I don't think ActivityPub is going to be the final answer for federated social networks, but it's, it is what it is. Again, we developed our own at Fediway that can connect servers and communicate much more quickly without any of the database, heavy loads and things like that. And you have much more control specifically, and it integrates much cleaner, so it actually looks like it's one website, right? the data is pulled in, so it actually, you look like you're staying on your own server instead of going to another server to look at someone's profile, like it works right now. So that's basically it. It's just separate standalone servers. They have this protocol system that they use to communicate with each other, interact with each other. So you can be on two separate servers and be talking to each other, kind of like email, right? So you have two separate email, you have Hotmail and you have Gmail and you have, Proton Mail, and these emails can all email with each other because they're using a similar protocol to communicate, to send and receive messages. Okay. So that's basically all it is. Think of it like email, but with more features, okay? So you're doing posting. ActivityPub doesn't have a lot of features built into it. You can post, you can like something, you can repost something, and the search features are very minimal. It's not easy to search. I think there's more people. There's a couple different systems that are using like quotes right now, but not many people use it. So it's, the problem with the way they're doing things here, with everyone's kind of a little fragmented, is that, if one person does something one way, another person does it another way, they can't really communicate with each other. Okay. So there's some of that right now. Like I said, the features are very minimal, but it works, and I've been on the Fediverse for a long time. I love it. It's a weird place. Um, but um, but there's some good people there that are privacy minded and that are trying to develop good technologies. I don't agree with almost all of them politically or on anything socially, probably, I would say. Most everyone there's there or was there, when I first started being there. But I respect what they're doing, and a lot of them are working hard at doing it. So you can't knock somebody that's trying to produce human-friendly tech, right? Um, so again, that's the technology. That's how it works. It's how they're communicating with each other right now. Okay. So as far as the different applications that are being built, and by application I mean, like, you have a Twitter looking application, you have a Facebook looking application, you have these different applications, right? They're different programs, but they're using ActivityPub to communicate, but they have different designs and different features and functionality and different ways of displaying the content and showing the threads and things like that, right? So Mastodon is by far the biggest. They've been around the longest. They haven't been around the longest, but they've been around. They've really kind of taken the lead. It's developed by this guy named Eugen, username Gargon. He and I have had several exchanges. We're very different politically, right? He's a total SJW liberal. I mean, over the top, right? Would call me a Nazi like that for sure, right? And whatever, right? But I've given the kid hundreds and hundreds of dollars over the years because he's developing tech that is important and it's open source, right? So I've been supporting the kid for a long time, right? In different accounts in different ways. So Mastodon's a really big one. Pleroma is kind of a new one, but it's really gaining ground. I've used it on an instance called Free Speech Extremist, and it's a great protocol. It's a great application. I think it's under construction. It's developing. It seems to be developing. Have a pretty active community developing it. Some interesting characters again developing it, but it's a good app. We haven't really dug into the code on that very much yet, but I'm planning on doing that, and then maybe supporting that project as well. The only other project that I've really supported for years is Miski, which is a great little project, right? It's run by this kid in Japan. I can't even say his name. He's a funny little kid, but he's a young guy. But he's been working on this thing for years, right? And he's a good coder. But again, interesting kid. Doesn't speak English. Great kid though. And I've given him hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I respect what he's doing. But he's I don't understand Japan. We're going to talk about that a little more later, but they all have like those avatars. These men, guys, have avatars of like little girls, like cartoon cats and stuff. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, what are you doing? But whatever, you know. He's a good developer. And he's working hard, and it's kind of his life project. Um, and so these are worthy projects worth supporting. Okay, these guys need help supporting these projects, right? Miskey kid doesn't make anything, right? He's making like hundreds of dollars a month, pretty much. He's not even making over $1,000 a month, probably, right? And he's working full time on this thing. This Mastodon guy, Gargron, he's worked for years on this project, and he's only making probably like $4,000 a month, I think, or something. Last time I looked, and he's he's taken a lot of abuse for this project in a lot of ways, and he ain't getting rich, right? And again, don't like the kid. I respect what he's doing. I shouldn't say I don't like him. He and I, would be very different, but he's developing open source tech that's human friendly, right? And so to me, that's what's important. And like I said, I've sponsored the kid, and I continue to sponsor him um, as time goes on. Um, or we'll see how he does. I think Pleroma has a good chance of really gaining ground on Mastodon, but we'll see. I don't really have a lot of faith in ActivityPub going. I've had this debate with people before, but anyway. So PeerTube, this is another application. This is like a YouTube style application. Matrix, this is something different. This is like a messaging system, like a VoIP type system, I guess. Diaspora, this is one of the first ones um, developed by this really great kid. I think they killed, but he was a great kid. PixelFed, I think this is like I forget the name of that image big tech company, but it's something like that. And again, Miski. So the main one again is Mastodon, far and above. Pleroma probably only has like less than 20,000, I think, total users. So active users is probably like a third of that. And that's mostly all on one porn site, right? Campsite. And then all the other instances are just like, a couple hundred or 50 people or something like that. So let's take a look at Mastodon and get into these instances, the cultures, and these communities that exist, and the numbers, right, on how many users are there and things like that. So the neat thing about federated systems is no one really cares that much about who has the biggest instance. Most of these folks, it's not really a factor for them. They're doing it. Most of these people that run these instances are not getting paid. They're doing it as hobby sites. They're not getting paid at all. Okay. And they don't really care about how many people they have. They just have their little community, and they enjoy managing their community and interacting with everybody in their little community, which is the way it should be, right? Because then everyone kind of knows each other. They know the CEO. They're interacting with a guy who's running the site, and so everybody's accountable to each other. Kind of. It's the way it's nice, right? It's the way it should be. And people can pick. You go into a community, you see what the leaders are like, and see if you get along with them or agree, or everybody's being mean to you. Then you pick another instance, right? There's thousands of them, literally, right? There's thousands of these Mastodon instances out there. Okay, so you can see there's 2,700 nodes, right? Instances of Mastodon right now that are currently connected. Okay. Actual users in the last 6 months, which is what social networks typically base things on. So active users in the last 6 months was 460,000, 463,000. This number is constantly changing. Every time you refresh this page, this number will be different. Like I was just here a second ago, it said like 450,000 or something like that, or 459 or something like that. So it's constantly updating based on the traffic of that day and things, and estimating, from the day before it's dropping off. So this does an active users for the last 6 months. That's the typical number people use to report social networking communities. Okay. So this is how big the Fediverse is. Okay, the Fediverse is made up of about 463,000 people. Okay, active users over the last 6 months. Okay, and that's not counting bots and multiple accounts. Almost everybody in the Fediverse has multiple accounts on different instances. Okay, so it's not a huge. I mean, obviously, it's like minuscule compared to like a Facebook, right, which would have a couple more zeros on there. But but it is what it is, right? A couple things you need to know about the Fediverse. First of all, the Fediverse is pretty much run by the Japanese. Okay, the Japanese run everything on the Fediverse. They're by far the most active group of people on the Fediverse is Japanese. Okay, for some reason, the Mastodon, I think in Japan is the most popular social network in Japan over Facebook and Twitter and everything. Right? Japanese love the federated systems for some reason, which is awesome. But Japanese are interesting folk. They are very, very weird people. Okay, I'm not trying to be racist or mean or anything. I'm just saying they're different, right? They're hilarious. I think they're great, but they're just, I mean, just go to YouTube and type in like Japanese commercial, or Japanese game show, right, or something like that, and you'll see what I mean. They're crazy. But anyway, so let's look at the websites, the communities here. So again, the Fediverse is made up of about 463,000 people. Okay. So you look down here at this column of active users. Okay. And again, it's great because all this data is reported as part of the Mastodon project. In the code is included some protocols that report back the number of active users and all these a number of posts and the number of active users half year and total user counts. Most of these sites do a pretty good job of cleaning up their user counts and cleaning people out because they don't want those extra users in their database. Because again, people don't care about bragging like the way some of these other social networks do. They want to say, I have 1 million users, even though they have like 5,000 and they just have like, 999, 5,500, bots, right? But, you know, most of these sites are just hobby sites. They're not raising money. They're not even getting paid at all. So they have nothing to pump or get people excited about. They're just running their little communities and they're just trying to keep the database clean from old accounts to keep their server costs down. And they get rid of the bots and things like that because they don't want to pay for it, So they don't gain anything by allowing bots to run on their sites because they're not trying to raise money by pretending to have a huge community. So powwow, like I said, this is a Japanese run site. You can see over here the languages, right? So Japan, Germany, US, Japan, France, Germany, US, Germany, US. I guess that's New Zealand. So we'll kind of just go through the top 20 sites or so, which makes up like almost 80-90% of the Fediverse. So powwow, this is a Japanese run site. It's a really well done site, actually. I like this homepage design. And but it's all Japanese, right? 100% Japanese. I'm not going to click on this thing because you never know what you're going to get. These guys just love, see what I mean? They just love all these crazy cartoon cat girls, cat people and things. I don't understand it, what the deal is, but and they like food, but no idea what they're saying. But that's by far the biggest website in the Fediverse. They have almost 120,000 users, right? So that's like 25% of the entire Fediverse right there. Okay. And then you go to mastodon.social. This is the site that's run by the guy who created the Mastodon project, Eugen Gargaron. They have about 54,000 users. Twitter. This is a website dedicated to prostitutes, where all the prostitutes list themselves on their profiles, so people can find them and hire them, I guess. They have 43,000 active users. Tumblr. This is a very graphic porn site I want to go to. About 30,000, 27,000 users. Mastodon.jp. This is another Japanese website. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but I know these guys. These guys actually are kind of normal. They're, loosely termed conservative type group. It's probably the biggest instance of what I would, call conservatives in the very loosest sense of the word. But it's run by guys that are kind of mentally ill, and I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them, to tell you the truth. I've seen posts that they've made where they've said that they would report people from other countries if the country asked them, because they believe everybody should obey the laws of the country that they're in. So they've reported people from England on their instance to English government when requested without a warrant. These guys are American based. They don't have to do it. They just like to do it because they think it's right, right? To report some user for hate speech, some English user, right? Or I think the user was from England. I think the case was from England. The English government asked for details on this user, right? They can't force them to do it. And it was over something hate speech, like he said some word, right? Hate speech word or something, or anti-Muslim thing or something. And these guys said that they turned him in, right? As I understand it. Or he said that he would turn him in. He said he sees no problem with it, right? So that's their. You have to look at every instance and see who's running it and see what their ethics are before you get involved. Okay, and some of these people have very different viewpoints on free speech than you might. Okay, so you just need to kind of learn about each instance separately and take each one as it comes. Okay, so I would not trust that instance, this quad verum, for conservatives at all. Um, these other ones, Mastodon.social is again, it's run by very, very, very liberal folks, very anti-free speech folks. And so, who knows what they would do? I'm sure they would report a conservative or a Nazi anytime they were asked, or for fun, or just, dox them just for kicks, right? Um, ABDL, this website, this is what, the seventh, one, two, three, four, five, six, the seventh largest website in the Fediverse, right? Is a website dedicated, be ready for this, grown men, grown men that wear diapers, okay? So this is the seventh largest website in the Fediverse, okay? I went through here first to make sure I didn't have any images that were, some of these are really bad, so I just uncovered the ones that weren't as bad and covered the other ones up. So it's just literally the whole website is dedicated to dudes wearing diapers. Okay. And you're going to find the Fediverse. I mean, I'm just showing you this so you understand how weird the Fediverse is. Okay. Because this isn't even close to as weird as the Fediverse gets. Okay. The Fediverse gets very, very weird. Okay. And the one of the biggest communities besides the LGBT type communities and and transsexuals, or I don't know what the term is, right? I but is what are called furries, right? So these guys dress up in like animal outfits, I guess, and like have orgies and things. I don't even understand it, but there's some very weird communities in here. Okay, very weird. I'm just warning you ahead of time. I'm not trying to scare you away from the Fediverse, because I really do think it's the future of social networking. But I'm telling you, there's some weirdos in here. Okay, not just some, the vast majority are weirdos. Okay, vast majority. Okay, so there's very few what I would call normal people in the Fediverse, right? So or English speaking normal people, I should say. So here you have 120,000, 54, 43,000, hooker website, porn website, Japanese, trader, weirdo trader, boys wearing diapers, another Japanese website. I don't even know what this is. It looks weird. I don't want to click on it here with y'all. Queer as Folk, right? Symblr's another very graphic porn site. So anyway, I added up all these, you take the top 20 websites or so, right? Top 20 most popular websites in the Fediverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, perfect. You take the top 20 most popular websites in the Fediverse, which is just this section here, and that equals about 470, or I mean 370, 380,000 users. Okay. So you have roughly left after that about 80, 90,000 people that aren't in this top 20 of the websites, which again are all pretty weird. Okay. Mostly Japanese and porn and hookers, and very, very liberal weirdo folks. Okay. The other 70, 80,000 users, um, active monthly users, just go down this column here. And most of them are going to get, they get very, very small as you scroll down. Most of them are just like a couple hundred people as you go down. But, that's how you make up the other 70, 80,000 users or so are all on these very small instances. Most of them also are some of these are super duper weird. Okay. But most of them, again, are dedicated to these subcultures that, I forget the weird, but it's like other kin. So, it's this people that think that they're like part human and part something else. So they like, dress up like animals and wear furry costumes and all kinds of other weird stuff. Okay. In Japanese. That's pretty much the Fediverse. and, but again, I think there's a lot of future in the Fediverse. I've dedicated the last 18 months full time paying staff to build applications for the Fediverse myself out of my own pocket. That's how important I think this is. And I think the future of social networking is where we can all be independent and run our own instances and things like that. I should also mention Gab. Gab.com or Gab.ai has just joined the Fediverse, and what they did is they forked Mastodon. So they just took the same Mastodon application, and they're kind of just putting a new skin on it, a new design on it, and then adding some other features to it, I guess. But they were actually hidden from this list because they refused to report on their active monthly users because they've exaggerated their data, their user count so much in order to get funding. They claim they have 1 million users. They really have. They have less users than the Diaper Boy website, right? ABDL. Okay, they probably have around 5,000, 5 or 6,000, I would say, active users, monthly active users. Daily, I think it's like 1,500 or so. We did some checks. I think it's around 1,500. They have a lot of bots running. And when they first launched, the site was very, 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 very empty because they couldn't keep the bots working. Now they get the bots working again. And so they might start reporting on this number once they get the bots all working so it looks fake. But then probably a lot of instances have blocked them. They tried to make it out like they were being blocked because of free speech related stuff because they were Nazis. But really it was because a lot of their content is bots. And the number one reason why instances block each other in the Fediverse is because of spam, right? Bots running spam. And it can become very annoying. And it can be hard to control for anybody, right? Admittedly. But some people do it on purpose because they want to inflate their number and their user counts so that they can seem more important than they really are, so that they can get people to give them money and pretend like they're the only hope for the future of free speech, right? Very not cool. Okay. And again, I would, don't give those kind of people money, right? It really made me mad, honestly, when Gab forked Mastodon, which is fine. I don't really care about that. But then they start mocking Mastodon and making fun of Mastodon and the developer. Okay. Yeah. Gargon and I are polar opposites. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that the kid has worked for years building an application, dedicated his heart and soul and life to this thing, building something. Okay. And as much as I can't stand the kid, that's the fact of the matter. And I respect work and I respect people producing things and creating products. That's what we used to do as conservatives. Now it seems like all we do is bitch and complain about everybody not giving us what we want instead of building things ourselves. Gab literally took their code because they couldn't build their own. They tried to build their own and they failed over and over again. So they took 3 years worth of work, $3 million worth of money, and that they've supposedly spent developing Gab, and then threw it out the window and took this other guy's code and then put a new design on it, right? And now they're trying to run the same deal again, where they're pretending they have a lot of users and built something from scratch when really they didn't. It's really unethical, and it really makes me mad because they're not producing anything. They're not creating a real product. They're stealing someone else's product, right? Forking someone else's product, and then trying to take credit for it, right? Instead of building something from scratch themselves. And they say, "Whoa, it's so different now than what Mastodon is." No, it's not. It's reskinned. It's almost identical. And if you could do it, then you should have just done it yourself without taking Mastodon's code, right? So, I mean, it pains me to say this, but if you want to dedicate to a project, I would dedicate to Gargon. Even if you're a conservative, I would rather dedicate to someone that's building things than someone who's taking things and then just cutting people down, right? Gab did the same thing with the Brave browser. It made me really angry because I like the Brave browser, right? Again, they're based in San Francisco. I probably wouldn't agree with them on almost anything, probably politically or spiritually or things like that. I don't think. I don't know, but I'm just guessing. But they've developed this browser that's very secure, very privacy focused, and open source. Okay, and they've spent years doing it. Genius dudes, right? The guy that runs that project is a super smart guy, right? And he developed JavaScript. I think he made JavaScript, right? Whatever that means. But these are smart people that work very hard, and then you get these little goofballs that come in, take all their work, put a new logo on it. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. Gab took Brave's logo and put a new color scheme on it within 48 hours, and then said, "Look what we made." Right? We made a browser, the Gab browser or whatever. I'm just like, oh. And the guy who created Brave called him a parasite, rightfully so, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to take credit for other people's work, like they developed something, and then get people to donate money to them, and stealing funds that should go to these people that are actually building something rightfully, right? So they're undermining real free speech projects where people are actually building something and working hard, and they're undermining these other projects and trying to take credit for the work of others, right? Which is just despicable in my mind. I mean, it really irks me to do that. Okay. Also regarding Gab, as I mentioned with this Quad Verum forum site here, this guy who's I forget his name, Vicar or something like that, but he like I said, he broadcast and announced proudly that he would turn people in to any government, right? That, based on their laws, if a user was on his website. And he's a U.S. citizen, doesn't have to do it, right? It's just an idiot, right? Jerk. Gab, honestly, has done the same thing. There's been a bunch of, I'm not trying to knock Gab, right? I do make fun of Gab a lot because it's hilarious to do it, but this is something that really does make me nervous or make me upset. They admitted to handing over all of their user data to the FBI, and I've seen dozen plus people come online posting in the Fediverse showing cards and proof that the FBI came to visit them with chat logs from Gab in hand. Okay. So Torba has admitted to handing in all this user data. I'm sure in his mind, because he's naive, in his mind, he thought he was doing something good to prevent mass shootings or something like that. But, they're building databases on folks for the future. Okay. And they might not have hate speech laws in place now, but they will in the future. probably, and they're going to have some really nice lead lists to go from in the future with all this data, you know. And it's easy to say, oh yeah, well, if someone's doing something illegal, then you got nothing, you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to hide, right? But in the future, things can change, and they have a lead list right there on who to call on for hate speech laws, right, and things like that. So I would be careful of that in that regard too, with your personal data on Gab. And again, any one of these sites, you have that potential. And so you really need to get to know your community leaders, your community managers, who's ever running the website, running the servers, and be careful what you share online, especially in the Fediverse. The Fediverse is weird. There's some serious hardcore trolls in the Fediverse, some scary dudes and girls and in between. And so you just need to be, I would recommend staying anonymous in the Fediverse at least first, and using a VPN to access it, and just getting to know where you're at and know what's up, right? Because like I said, there's some serious sketchy stuff going on in the Fediverse, but there's some great stuff going there too. Okay, so I'm not completely knocking it. And again, I think it's the future, and I think it's where everyone's going to be in the future, in some way, shape, or form. So hope that helps. Hope I didn't sound too negative on the Fediverse, because I do love the Fediverse. Okay, and I would encourage everyone to try it out. And you can create your own instance. There's some services out there where you can launch a Mastodon hosted version of Mastodon, for like $5 a month, right? You can have your own server set up and just have it all running for like $5 a month. I have one, and just so I can access the Fediverse on my own terms. So anyway, hope that helps. Again, I'm Derek from Fediway Project. Thanks. Bye.